Let's bring in Helima Croft, RBC Capital Markets Global Head of Commodity Strategy, CNBC contributor, expert on the Middle East. Why is oil lower today?
I think market participants have decided that this story, this chapter of this war story is over for now, that essentially Iran did the shock and awe, and the Israelis are going to be patient in terms of their response. But the war cabinet has not made a decision yet on how to respond to the attacks over the weekend. You could still see some significant Israeli retaliation. So I think it is too soon to fade this story.
Would Israel make a move with the U.S. telling it that it will not support retaliation?
So this is interesting. The United States said it would not support offensive operations, but the expectation obviously would be that the United States would continue to support Israel's defense. And they have a coalition of countries that we saw over the weekend that were very supportive of Israel. And so the question is the U.S. caution or the White House caution going to hold back the Israelis? Or do they basically decide it's in their national security interest to proceed with a retaliation?
Also, why is that the U.S.? Why is that President Biden's response? If missiles and drones were sent to this country, do you think that would be the response?
I think the Biden administration has tried from the beginning of this war to keep it contained. They have been very concerned about getting dragged into a broader Middle East conflict, and they've been very concerned about this expanding to Iran. They're very concerned about energy prices, very concerned about U.S. troops in the region that are at risk if you have Iranian proxies fire on them. But again, the Israeli government has not made a decision yet in terms of what the retaliation will be.
If this does escalate, which it very well may not,
right,
what would that mean for oil prices in the near term?
I mean, certainly we'll be watching what happens in the Straits of Hormuz. And we saw right before the missiles and drones started being fired that the Iranians boarded a vessel in the Straits of Hormuz and commandeered it. They have the capacity. They can't close the Straits of Hormuz, but they can do significant damage to energy infrastructure, to vessels in the region. So we have to wait and see what comes out of these discussions. And again, I would remind viewers that we still have cross-border rockets fired between Israel and Hezbollah on a daily basis. And you still have Israeli officials saying Hezbollah has to move back from that border because they need to move Israeli citizens home. So this story is not over, even if the immediate Israel-Iran chapter is parked for now. But again, I would pay close attention to what happens in the war cabinet discussions.
Meantime, the Journal over the weekend quoted a U.S. official saying so much for the vaunted ballistic missile capability of Iran. Do you think that came as a surprise?
I think it's a story of the strength of Iron Dome and the strength of, the U.S., Israeli and regional partnership. So I think the defense technology, did extraordinarily well. What we don't know is what would have happened if Iran chose to use hypersonic missiles. So again, it is an interesting question about, what would come next in terms of escalation. If Hezbollah became involved in the conflict, they have 170,000 rockets that could be deployed. So again, it was a very good, weekend in terms of the technology. But the question is, would it still stand if you had a much bigger offensive? We just don't know.